Golden shadows. Sophia Martinez adjusted the aperture on her vintage Nikon, capturing the steam rising from the paella her husband Marcus was plating. The kitchen of Races buzzed with activity, line cooks calling orders, servers weaving between stations, and Marcus at the center of it all, conducting his culinary symphony with confident hands. "Perfect timing," Marcus said, not looking up as Sophia clicked another shot. "But maybe focus more on the plate? The lighting hits the saffron just right." She nodded, though he didn't see it. After 5 years of marriage and 3 years since Marcus opened the restaurant, Sophia had grown accustomed to being both invisible and indispensable. Her photographs of his creations had built the restaurant's reputation online, her eye for composition making every dish look like edible art. "I thought I might use some of these for my portfolio," she mentioned, reviewing the images on her camera display. "I've been thinking about that gallery submission we talked about." Marcus wiped his hands on his apron and finally looked at her. His smile was warm but distracted. "Your food photography has definitely improved. You should be proud. You're married to the chef everyone in Seattle is talking about." The comment stung in its casual dismissal. Before Marcus, before Raíces consumed their lives, Sophia had been building a name for herself in the photography world. Her environmental portraits had been featured in 2 group exhibitions, with critics noting her unique ability to capture human vulnerability against urban landscapes. "I meant my own work," she clarified, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "The street series I've been shooting on Sundays." Right, Marcus nodded, already turning back to his station. "Hey, can you get some shots of the new sous chef? We should feature him on the website. He trained in Valencia." Sophia swallowed her disappointment and moved through the kitchen, her camera a shield between her and the reality that had slowly crystallized over the years. She had become an extension of Marcus's dream, a supporting character in his story rather than the protagonist of her own. Later that evening, after the dinner rush, Sophia sat alone at the bar nursing a glass of Tempranillo. The restaurant had closed, and Marcus was in his office reviewing supplier contracts. Their life had fallen into this predictable rhythm, her waiting for him to finish, him too exhausted for real conversation when he did. She scrolled through her camera roll, past the hundreds of food photographs to find her personal work. The faces of strangers on rainy Seattle streets looked back at her, an elderly man feeding pigeons, 2 women laughing under an umbrella, a child staring at his reflection in a puddle. These moments, frozen in time, felt more real to her than the carefully arranged plates of food that had become her daily focus. "Those are incredible," said Elena, the bartender, leaning over to glance at Sophia's camera. "You took these? Just some personal projects?" Sophia replied with a small smile. "Nothing special." "Are you kidding?" "They're amazing. You should be showing these somewhere." The compliment warmed Sophia in a way she hadn't felt in months. "I used to dream of having my own exhibition." "What happened to that dream?" Elena asked, wiping down the bar. Before Sophia could answer, Marcus emerged from his office, jacket on and keys in hand. "Ready to go?" "I'm beat." On the drive home, rain tapped against the windshield as Marcus talked excitedly about a food critic who had visited that evening. Sophia watched the city lights blur through the raindrops, half listening to his monologue. "The investor group was impressed," Marcus continued. "They're talking about funding a second location." "That's wonderful," she said automatically, though the thought of another restaurant consuming what little remained of their life together filled her with dread. "I couldn't have done it without you," he added, reaching over to squeeze her hand briefly before returning it to the steering wheel. The words should have comforted her, but they felt hollow. She wondered if he even knew what it referred to anymore. Her photography? Her emotional support? The fact that she managed their social media, designed their website, and handled the accounting when they couldn't afford to hire help? At home, Sophia stood in their small makeshift darkroom, developing photographs while Marcus slept. Under the red safety light, she watched as an image slowly revealed itself on the paper. A self-portrait she had taken weeks ago, her reflection in a restaurant window, camera raised, Marcus visible inside, his back to her as he cooked for a crowd of admiring patrons. The metaphor wasn't lost on her. She had been documenting their life together, but somewhere along the way, she had faded into the background of her own story. Tomorrow was the restaurant's 5-year anniversary celebration. Marcus had been planning it for months, a showcase of his journey with investors, food critics, and friends all gathering to celebrate his success. As she hung the photograph to dry, Sophia made a quiet decision. It was time to bring herself back into focus. The anniversary toast. The 5-year anniversary celebration of races transformed the restaurant into a glittering showcase of Marcus's accomplishments. String lights hung from exposed beams, casting a warm glow over the crowd of Seattle's culinary elite. Sophia had spent the morning arranging flowers, setting up the photo display of the restaurant's journey, and finalizing the slideshow that would play during Marcus's speech. She wore a burgundy dress she'd purchased months ago for a gallery opening she never attended, choosing instead to help Marcus prepare for a major catering event. Her camera hung around her neck, both accessory and armor, as she circulated through the room, documenting the evening as always. "There she is, the woman behind the lens," called out James, one of the investors, raising his glass in Sophia's direction. "Marcus tells us you're the secret weapon behind all those Instagram-worthy shots." Sophia smiled politely. "Just doing my part." "And quite the part it is," James continued. "What did you do before becoming Race's personal photographer? I'm curious about your background." Before she could answer, Marcus appeared beside her, slipping an arm around her waist. "Sophia was just finding her way when we met. Now she's found her calling, capturing beautiful food, haven't you, love?" He kissed her temple affectionately, but his words cut deep. "Actually, I was exhibiting my documentary photography," Sophia corrected gently. "I had a series on Seattle's changing waterfront neighborhoods that was featured at the Hamilton Gallery." Marcus laughed lightly, the sound dismissive. "Right, those moody black and whites. But you have to admit, working with beautiful food is a step up from gloomy street scenes." Several of the guests chuckled. Sophia felt her face flush as she stepped slightly away from her husband's grasp. "I believe there's beauty in authenticity," she said quietly, "even in the gloomy parts." "Speaking of authenticity," Marcus smoothly redirected, "wait until you taste tonight's special menu, a journey through Races' evolution, with a few surprises I've been developing for our next venture." As the conversation shifted to Marcus's culinary innovations, Sophia excused herself. In the quiet hallway leading to the office, she leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. The sensation of invisibility that had been gradually enveloping her now felt suffocating. When she returned, Marcus was preparing to give his speech. The lights dimmed as he took center stage, illuminated by a single spotlight. The slideshow Sophia had created began playing behind him, a visual journey of races from concept to celebrated institution. "5 years ago, I had a dream," Marcus began, his voice confident and warm. "A vision of bringing authentic Spanish cuisine with a Pacific Northwest twist to Seattle." As he spoke of challenges overcome and successes achieved, Sophia watched the images transition on screen, photographs she had taken, moments she had captured, all framed to highlight Marcus's journey. Not once in the 20-minute speech did he acknowledge her contributions beyond a casual mention of "my wife's beautiful photographs." The final slide showed Marcus with his kitchen team, arms raised in celebration after receiving their first major review. Sophia remembered taking that photograph, remembered being asked by Marcus to hurry so he could join the group. She wasn't in a single image of the presentation. When Marcus raised his glass for the toast, his eyes scanned the room until they found hers. "To Races," he proclaimed, "and to all of you who believed in my vision. The best is yet to come." The crowd erupted in applause. Champagne flutes clinked. Sophia's remained untouched. Later, as guests mingled and Marcus basked in congratulations, Elena sidled up beside Sophia at the bar. "Great photos," she said, nodding toward the displays. "Though I noticed the photographer is mysteriously absent from all of them." Sophia shrugged. "Someone has to take the pictures." "You know," Elena said, leaning closer, "my brother runs that new gallery in Capitol Hill. They're looking for fresh perspectives for their spring showcase. I showed him some of your street photography on my phone. Hope you don't mind. I snapped pics of your camera display last week." He was impressed. Sophia stared at her, surprised. You did what? The exhibition for 6 weeks, Sophia lived a double life. By day, she maintained her role at races, photographing new menu items and managing social media with the same care as always. By night and during Marcus's staff meetings, she disappeared into the city with her camera, capturing moments that spoke to her artistic vision. The tension at home grew palpable. Marcus, consumed with plans for his second restaurant, barely noticed her increasing absences until they affected his needs. The website hasn't been updated in 2 weeks, he pointed out one morning as Sophia prepared to leave. And we need new shots of the spring menu by Friday for the press release. Sophia paused at the door. I've already scheduled the shoot for tomorrow. As for the website, I thought we agreed to hire someone for that now that the investors are on board. Marcus frowned. That's an unnecessary expense. You've always handled it perfectly. I can't do everything, Marcus, she said simply. Not anymore. Before he could respond, she left. Her destination not races, but the small gallery in Capitol Hill where Elena's brother David had offered her wall space in an upcoming exhibition called Unseen. The gallery was quiet when she arrived, morning light streaming through tall windows. David greeted her with enthusiasm, his creative energy contagious as they reviewed her final selections. These are extraordinary. Sophia, he said, studying a photograph of an elderly chef at a food cart, his weathered hands preparing a simple dish with the same care Marcus gave to his elaborate creations. You capture dignity in everyday moments. Her new series, titled Behind the Scenes, documented the invisible laborers who made Seattle's celebrated food scene possible. Dishwashers, prep cooks, farmers, and street vendors. It was both a love letter to food culture and a quiet commentary on whose contributions were celebrated and whose were overlooked. The opening is in 3 weeks, David reminded her. Have you told your husband? Having the chef from races there would draw a crowd. Sophia hesitated. Not yet. It's complicated. Meanwhile, Marcus faced unexpected challenges at the restaurant. Without Sophia's constant support, small details began to slip through the cracks. The social media engagement dropped, the website looked increasingly dated, and the quality of food photographs taken by a hurriedly hired freelancer paled in comparison to Sophia's work. Where are you these days? He asked one night when she returned home late, the scent of darkroom chemicals clinging to her clothes. The new photographer is garbage. I need you back in the restaurant. I have my own project, she replied, setting down her bag. I told you 3 times last week, but you were too busy with investor calls to hear me. Marcus looked genuinely confused. What project could be more important than races right now? We're at a critical growth stage. My exhibition, she said firmly. The one I've been working toward for years. It opens in 3 weeks at Luminous Gallery. For a moment, Marcus was silent, processing this information as if she'd spoken in a foreign language. An exhibition? Of the food photography? No, Sophia said, meeting his gaze steadily. My own work. Documentary photography focused on unseen workers in the food industry. You've been planning this without telling me? His tone shifted from confusion to accusation. I've been talking about my photography goals for our entire relationship, Marcus. You just haven't been listening. The argument that followed was their worst yet. Marcus, incredulous that she would abandon him during his expansion plans, Sophia finally voicing years of accumulated frustration at being treated as an accessory to his ambitions rather than an artist in her own right. I never asked you to give up your photography, he insisted. You never had to, she replied. You just made it impossible for me to pursue it while meeting your expectations. In the tense days that followed, they existed in the same space but occupied different worlds. Marcus threw himself into the restaurant, working longer hours than ever. Without acknowledging their fight, he hired a social media manager and website designer, tacitly admitting that he had taken Sophia's work for granted. The night before her exhibition, Sophia found Marcus waiting up for her, a glass of wine in hand and another poured for her. I'd like to come tomorrow, he said as she set down her equipment. To your opening, Sophia studied him cautiously. Why? Because it's important to you, he answered, and for the first time in months he seemed to be truly looking at her. And because I realize I've been missing things. It's not a races event, she warned. No one will care that you're a chef with investors. His wince told her the barb had landed. I deserve that, he admitted. But I'd still like to come. As your husband, not as Marcus Martinez, chef owner. She considered him for a long moment before nodding. 7 o'clock. Dress appropriately. The following evening, Sophia arrived at Luminous Gallery early, her heart pounding as she saw her work professionally mounted on the crisp white walls. David had given her the prime space, 20 photographs that told stories of unseen lives, dignity in labor, and beauty in authenticity. The centerpiece was a triptych titled Recognition. The first image showed hands preparing food in various contexts, from high-end restaurants to street carts. The second captured the faces of those who served others, their expressions ranging from pride to exhaustion. The third was a self-portrait. Sophia reflected in the window of races, her camera raised, capturing what others overlooked. As visitors began to arrive, she searched for Marcus among the faces, unsure if he would actually come. The uncertainty was answer enough to questions she'd been avoiding for months. Part 4. Recognition. The gallery buzzed with conversation as art lovers, photographers, and curious locals moved from image to image, wine glasses in hand. Sophia stood beside David, accepting compliments with a gracious smile that didn't quite mask her distraction. Her eyes continuously drifted to the entrance, watching for Marcus. This series is remarkable, said a woman in her 50s, a gallery owner from Portland, according to her introduction. The juxtaposition of high-end culinary culture with the unseen labor behind it feels especially relevant. Are you familiar with the restaurant industry personally? Before Sophia could respond, a familiar voice answered from behind her. She's intimately familiar with it, Marcus said, stepping forward in a charcoal suit she hadn't seen him wear since their wedding. Though I'm only now realizing she saw things I was blind to. Sophia turned, surprised not just by his presence, but by the humility in his tone. The gallery owner smiled politely and moved on, leaving them in an island of awkward silence amid the crowded room. You came, Sophia finally said. I said I would. Marcus glanced around at the gathering. It's a good turnout. David has connections in the art community. She gestured toward her gallery host, who was enthusiastically explaining her technique to a small group. Marcus nodded, then looked directly at her with an intensity that had been absent for months. Show me your work? I want to see it through your eyes. The request was so unexpected that Sophia found herself momentarily speechless. Then, with a cautious nod, she led him to the beginning of her series. As they moved from photograph to photograph, Marcus remained unusually quiet. He studied each image with the same concentration he gave to perfecting a complex dish, occasionally asking questions about her process or the subjects. When they reached the triptych, he stopped, his breath catching visibly. That's you, he said, pointing to the self-portrait reflection. At Raíces, yes, you look. He searched for the word, separate. Like you're documenting a world you don't belong in. Sophia didn't confirm or deny his observation, instead watching his face as realization dawned. Is that how you felt all this time? Before she could answer, David appeared beside them, champagne flutes in hand. Sophia, the critic from the Seattle Arts Review, wants to speak with you. And, he turned to Marcus with a knowing smile, you must be the husband. I've heard much about your restaurant. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sophia noticed Marcus didn't immediately launch into his usual spiel about races. Instead, he deflected attention back to her work. My wife is the artist here tonight, he said simply. I'm just fortunate enough to be married to her. The simple acknowledgement, so long withheld, affected Sophia more deeply than she expected. Later, as the crowd thinned and the evening wound down, Marcus stood before the last photograph in her series, a striking image of the back entrance to races, where staff gathered after closing, their exhausted postures contrasting with genuine smiles of camaraderie. I never noticed, he said softly as she joined him. How beautiful these moments are. They happen every night, she replied. while you're in your office counting receipts. He turned to her then, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen since they were first dating. 3 people asked if I'm Sofia Martinez's husband tonight. No one has ever introduced me that way before. How did it feel? Strange, he admitted. But not bad. Actually, it felt right somehow. A comfortable silence fell between them, more intimate than any conversation they'd had in months. There's someone I want you to meet, Sofia finally said, leading him to where an elderly man stood examining one of her photographs, the food cart chef whose dignified hands had captured David's attention. New Focus 3. Months after her exhibition opening, Sofia sat in a sunlit corner of Café Luçon, reviewing contracts spread across the table. Her first solo show had led to unexpected opportunities, a commission from the city to document Seattle's diverse food communities, and a teaching position at the Community Arts Center. The cafe door chimed, and Marcus entered, looking more relaxed than she had seen him in years, since they had decided on a trial separation 2 months ago. The artificial tension of trying to fix everything at once had dissipated, replaced by a cautious friendship as they each rediscovered themselves independently. "Sorry I'm late," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. The interview ran long. Sofia looked up with surprise. "You actually did it? The line cook position at Harborview?" He nodded, a hint of pride in his smile. 3 shifts a week. No executive title, no ownership stress, just cooking on the line again. And races? Miguel is doing well as head chef. The management company is handling the business and better than I ever did. He shrugged, the gesture lighter than it would have been months ago. Turns out I love cooking more than I love being Chef Marcus Martinez, culinary visionary. Sofia laughed softly, the sound unforced. Who would have thought? Everyone but me, apparently. He gestured to her paperwork. How's the city project? Challenging, rewarding. She pushed a mock-up across the table. This is the cover concept for the book that will accompany the exhibition. Marcus studied the image, a black and white photograph of diverse hands passing plates of food across a table, the Seattle skyline visible through windows in the background. The title, Breaking Bread, was embossed in simple typography. It's beautiful, Sofia. His admiration was genuine. When I saw your work that night at the gallery, I finally understood what you've been trying to tell me for years. You see things others miss? She accepted the compliment with a nod, no longer needing his validation but appreciating it nonetheless. How's the apartment? Small, quiet. He smiled wryly. I've started actually cooking for myself again instead of just tasting dishes at the restaurant. Turns out I enjoy eating at a real table instead of standing over a counter. They fell into easy conversation, updating each other on their lives as they had been doing weekly since deciding to live apart. The bitterness that had characterized their final months together had faded, replaced by something more complex, mutual respect tinged with nostalgia and cautious hope. When their coffee cups were empty, Marcus reached across the table, his fingers stopping just short of hers. I've been thinking about what you said, he began, his voice thoughtful, about building something where both our worlds exist side by side. Sofia met his gaze, curious but guarded. I'm not asking to come home, he clarified quickly. We both needed this time, but I have a proposition. He pulled a folder from his messenger bag and placed it between them. There's a space opening up in the Arts District. It's a restaurant with a gallery attached, or a gallery with a restaurant attached, depending how you look at it. The owner is retiring, looking to sell both businesses together. Sofia opened the folder, examining photographs of a charming converted warehouse with high ceilings, exposed brick, and walls of windows. The restaurant side was small but elegant, the gallery space open and flooded with natural light. I'm not following, she said, though a flicker of understanding was beginning to take shape. What if we created something together? Not my restaurant where you help out, not your gallery where I occasionally cater an event. Something built from the ground up that honors both of us. His eyes were bright with an enthusiasm she hadn't seen since they first dated. A place where food and art exist in true partnership. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. You want us to go into business together? When our marriage is on pause, I want us to create something that reflects what our marriage should have been, he said simply. Equal parts your vision and mine. No hierarchy, no primary dream with the other person in a supporting role. Sophia leaned back, studying him with newfound interest. You're serious? Completely. He tapped the folder. No pressure. Think about it. The space won't be available for 6 months anyway. After he left, Sophia remained at the cafe, turning the proposition over in her mind. Their separation had given her space to reconnect with her art, without resentment clouding her creativity. She had built new relationships in the photography community, established her own reputation independent of being the chef's wife. The thought of entangling her professional life with Marcus again was daunting, and yet she returned to their house, her house now, temporarily, and walked through rooms that still held traces of their life together. In the study, her enlarged photographs now hung proudly alongside Marcus's framed restaurant reviews. On the bookshelf, her photography books stood beside his cookbooks, no longer relegated to the bottom shelf. Sophia picked up a framed photograph on the desk, one she had taken on their second date, before either of them had achieved any success. In it, Marcus stood in his tiny apartment kitchen, laughing as he tried to teach her to make paella, his face open and joyful, uncomplicated by ambition or expectations. Her phone buzzed with a text from him. No pressure about the proposal, just planting a seed. Whether as business partners, spouses, or just two people who once loved each other deeply, I'm proud of who you've become. The message brought unexpected tears to her eyes, not because it was a grand romantic gesture, but because it acknowledged something that had been missing from their relationship for too long. Seeing each other clearly, without the distortion of expectations. 2 weeks later, they met at the vacant restaurant gallery space after hours, the real estate agent leaving them alone to explore. The evening light streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across empty walls that held infinite possibilities. Marcus stood in the center of what would be the dining area, his expression thoughtful. What do you see? He asked as Sophia examined the space through her camera viewfinder. Potential, she replied. Connection. The gallery visitors would see into the restaurant kitchen there, she pointed, watching the process of creation while surrounded by art, and diners would experience the art as part of their meal, not just decoration. He nodded slowly. We could feature local artists who document food culture, farming, community meals, create a dialogue between the plate and the photograph, and host workshops in both, Sophia added, warming to the vision. Cooking classes, photography sessions, conversations about sustainability and culture. As they walked through the space together, their ideas building upon each other's, Sophia felt something shift between them, a new form of intimacy based not on dependency or sacrifice, but on mutual inspiration. In the empty gallery space, sunlight fading to dusk, Marcus turned to her. I know we have a lot to work through. Trust to rebuild, but standing here with you, planning something we both believe in equally, this feels right in a way races never did. Sophia considered him thoughtfully. The man before her wasn't the same one who had dismissed her dreams at the anniversary party. The separation had changed him, as it had changed her. This isn't about getting back together, she clarified. This is about creating something new. Exactly, he agreed. Though I won't pretend I don't hope that building this together might help us find a way back to each other, a different way, with new understanding. Sophia raised her camera, capturing his image in the empty space, not as the celebrated chef, nor as the humbled husband, but as a potential partner in a new venture. One step at a time, she said, lowering the camera. First, let's see if we can create something beautiful together professionally. As they stood in the empty space that held so much potential, the distance between them seemed both vast and bridgeable. Whatever happened with their marriage, they had both finally learned the most important lesson. True partnership required not just love, but recognition, seeing each other clearly and valuing what was seen. Marcus reached for her hand tentatively. After a moment's hesitation, Sophia took it, their fingers intertwining as they continued to walk through the space. Two artists envisioning a future where both their dreams could flourish side by side in perfect focus.